Well, hello, APW family. It's good to be here with you on this live stream. Thanks for joining. This is the second show, so to speak, or second time we've tried this communicating directly with you, the members. We hope to do it approximately between every 4 to 6 weeks, and really pleased that you came on. It gives me a chance to share some things with you, but more importantly, or just as importantly, it gives me a chance to hear from you some of the questions you've sent in. Because we as leaders really need to hear your ideas, your concerns, and know what's on your mind. Hope we have a little better luck towards the end than last time when the technology froze up. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for this hour, and we're going to keep it to under an hour. First, greetings, union greetings from all the national offices at headquarters, and really sincere and warm wishes that you're staying as healthy as we can and your families are and friends are during this tragic pandemic. And I have about 4 issues I want to raise. I'll try to keep it to 10 or 12 minutes so we can get to the questions and comments. But when we're talking about the pandemic, let's talk about where the vaccine is at in relation to postal workers. I know we've gotten a lot of questions. It's on all of our minds. And obviously, we hope it works, it's effective, and it's available. So what are we doing as a union to try to ensure that we as essential workers have high priority? It's a shame we have to compete over this, but there's not enough vaccines right now to go around. And our view is, you can see my button, I think, workers deserve respect. Essential workers deserve respect, just not in name, but in deed. And part of that deed is to make sure that essential workers are getting as early access as possible to the vaccine if you want it. We've had a lot of discussions with the post office. Now, one is the vaccine is not going to become a condition of employment, okay? It's going to be something that if you want to avail yourself to, it's voluntary. Many of you may know that the CDC had determined postal workers in a 1B category, but it's chaos out here. Sisters and brothers, there's 68 different entities that are deciding how the vaccines rolled out in their areas of jurisdiction, mostly by state, and then within states, counties are doing it differently. There's no national plan from the beginning. There was no federal government plan to deal with this pandemic, in my view, and there was a national plan on the rollout of the vaccine, in our view. Now, hopefully, the new administration will get control of this quickly. We've had a number of meetings with management, including a direct discussion with the PMG himself on how to somehow work together to make sure postal workers are in line as we deserve to be in line. As we're out here serving the public, it's not only a question of keeping us safe as postal workers, it's a question of keeping the public also as safe as possible. So we have an absolute commitment from management at the headquarters level that they will do anything in their power to help make the vaccines available if they can get the vaccines. That means inside larger workplaces. It may mean paid time off if you got to go somewhere else to get it from a workplace or to gather in a larger workplace. They're going so far as to commit to us that if they can buy the vaccines, they'll buy the vaccines. The underlying problem seems to be one of supply. And the Postal Service, as of yet, can't get their hands on the supply. Now, we've also written to the governors of the states that lowered us from a 1B category and protested it and asked them to reconsider and explain why. So we've also been proactive on the political front. So we're still working very, very hard on it. I certainly encourage you as an individual, if you're interested and want to get the vaccine, try to avail yourself of whatever's available in your state and jurisdiction. It gets tricky. I'm a little older than some, so my wife and I did have access to the vaccine. Just a quick story. She got hers lined up at a medical center, and it was going to be another 2 months. We found out that some of the stores with pharmacies were providing the vaccine. You got to find, it's crazy. It's chaos. You got to find your own way. She was able to move it up by almost 7 weeks by just calling around and finding out how some of these different pharmacies, such as CVS now, has some vaccines. So unfortunately, it's taken work on our part, but I'm sharing that story to encourage you to try to find your way through the bureaucracy as an individual, while the union's working very hard to get a collective government response, since we are all over the country as a national institution, so that the vaccine's available. And I think that management at our level is sincere that if they can get the supplies and it's there, they'll do everything in their power to get it into your hands, or more accurately, into your arms, if you want it. So that's one. Two is, and it's very important news and it's big news. Yesterday, President Biden announced 3 new nominees to the 3 vacant positions on the Board of Governors. Actually, a 4th vacant position because one of them is in a holdover year. But these are the 3 positions nobody was sitting in. On Monday, think about this. On Monday, the APWU led petition that a number of allied organizations such as Social Security Works, Move On, did a tremendous job getting signatures. The Grand Alliance to Save Our Public Postal Service was hard at work. And on display, we presented 400,000 plus signatures to the White House through their portals and communicated to the White House to please get it to President Biden as well. By Wednesday, we had nominees. Now, obviously, we've been working for a long time to promote a group of pro-postal worker, pro-public postal service advocates, and to the Board of Governors, and as well bring diversity to the Postal Board of Governors. Right now, the 6 people sitting there are all men. Most are white men. Most are tied into the financial world and the banking world. So it was very important to get this done. But let's talk about why it's so important. And by the way, one of the nominees is the former lead attorney of the American Postal Workers Union, Anton Hajar. One is Ron Stroman, who's the former Deputy Postmaster General, who knows a lot about the post office. By the way, on the current Board of Governors, including the PMG himself, they know very little about the post office. So it's very important to get people like Hajar and Stroman onto the board. They know a lot about the Postal Service. And they understand that it's service, not business, service. And the woman who got nominated, Amber McReynolds, I believe her name is, has been involved with the whole question of vote at home, vote by mail coalition. So she brings a unique perspective to the Board of Governors. It didn't happen by a magic wand. It happened through a lot of hard work, particularly on the part of legislative and political director Judy Beard in her shop. But fundamentally, the people of the country and all of you spoke up and said, we need quick appointments. Just so all of you know, it's very rare for new administration where they're dealing with cabinet positions, agency heads, and all these deputy heads and all these other things to go into the ranks, so to speak, the low-hanging fruit of something like the Postal Board of Governors. But we were able to impress, and you were all able to impress on this new administration, how important this issue is. The Board of Governors sets policy. The Board of Governors hire and fires the Postmaster General. So the rumors that are out there in the press about some of PMG's, DeJoy's possible plans about further slowing down the mail underscores just how important it is to get these 3 positions filled, get them confirmed quickly so they can bring their insights, their expertise, their struggle to the Postal Board of Governors and the future direction of the post office. So, and it's underscored again, I think, by the absolute chaos, how important the Board of Governors. You know better than me. You're out there in the trenches every day. Mail has never been worse than it is over the last few months. Never have the people of the country had their confidence in our wonderful national treasure undermined like we are now. And the Postal Board of Governors, I'm not going to tell you that PMG, that this is all, that he created all of this chaos. He inherited some, like chronic understaffing. Certainly COVID had an impact that he didn't control, but he threw gas on the fire with some of the policies. And he's the captain of the ship. And so is the Postal Board of Governors. And they have to be held accountable, and they got to get this fixed. And if you detect that I'm frustrated, I am, and I know you're even more frustrated. I've been out there in plants over the years when I'm able to travel, and I've had workers in tears because the mail wasn't moving, and they want to treat that mail as if it's our own. That's how we believe in the service that we provide. So that ties back to how important the Postal Board of Governors is. I also, and it shows, let me just conclude that part by just reminding everybody how important the activism was to get that petition, to get it in, and to send this message that we need these positions swiftly filled with the kind of people that we need on the Postal Board of Governors. I also had the opportunity, and I was very honored and privileged to be part of a hearing on the part of the Oversight and Reform Committee, which oversees postal issues. And when I say I was privileged, after 6 hours of it, I wasn't so sure, but I'm just joking. It was 6 hours long, but I just want to show you a very short clip.
The pandemic has underscored the vital role of the Postal Service, enshrined in the Constitution and overwhelmingly supported by the public. Our mission to bind the nation together is carried out by moving critical information, necessary goods, life-saving medicine, and on a nonpartisan basis, providing voters access to the ballot box. Like other frontline workers, postal workers have been nothing short of courageous in these dangerous and stressful times.
This ties into our legislative efforts. Obviously, the hearing was very important. We think we have a new opportunity, a unique opportunity in the political environment in the moment to finally get some positive postal legislation that helps put the Postal Service on a better financial path, more financial stability. I think most of us know on this call that the 2006 Postal Accountability Enhancement Act created a financial crisis that has to be fixed. Behind that financial crisis, they're understaffed. There's not new fleets. The buildings haven't been upgraded. So there's a lot that has to be addressed. And again, you're out there every day. We can't put our heads in the sand about what's happening to the mail, not just from COVID, but what's happened over the years. There's 45 billion less pieces of mail and letters and flats in the system than there was 10 years ago. That's 45 billion pieces a year. Now we know packages are up, so there's more finances coming with packages, far less on first class mail. But the fact of the matter is the Postal Service has been saddled with undue burdens, with absurd burdens, such as the PAEA. And we have to get Congress to step up on a bipartisan basis, to address some of these fundamentals. So we have, look, what happened yesterday in the hearing, and one of the reasons I showed you the clip is I don't think most of you are glutton enough for punishments to have watched the whole 5.5 hour or 6 hour hearing. But the fact of the matter is the hearing's a first step, and there's draft, very important, draft discussion pieces out there. We haven't agreed to the language. What we have agreed to is basic principles. We and the other postal unions on what it would take to have tight, strong postal legislation. And for those of you who did listen to the hearing, you know that those on the conservative side would like postal legislation to include a diminishing of our collective bargaining rights, would like postal legislation to include less benefits. That's what they want. And what we want, and the pillars that we will support, if the language is right and it's properly designed, is one, a full repeal of Postal Accountability Enhancement Act as it relates to the pre-funding. Now that doesn't put cash into the system of the Postal Service right away. but it takes off tremendous financial pressure. It builds confidence in the system. There's an outstanding $35 billion bill to Treasury of the unpaid part of the PAEA, which is law. The regular payments are amortized. That's also pre-funding, and it's just draining finances out of the Postal Service going forward. So we're confident that there's a lot of bipartisan support for that. We want the Postal Service to be able to invest, not the retirement funds, those are different, but the health fund that the post office is using to pay retiree health benefits. They have to do that no matter whether they have a fund or not. In fact, in the past, they just paid as they went. But the absurdity, there's $45 billion in there. It's a heck of a lot of money. And by the way, no other company, no other entity has had to pre-fund. But in that fund, $45 billion, it's forced into the federal treasury with bonds earning 1 or 2% a year. In the meantime, medical inflation is going up 6 and 8% a year. The billions of dollars in difference, or $500 million, $1 billion, $1.5 billion, whatever it might be in a particular year, has to be made up for from the post office. It comes out of the customers, it comes out of the workers, whatever it is. So we believe that some of those funds should be allowed to be invested in a TSP-like account. Most of you have that now under FERS, at least in the career side of the workforce, and that it be strong oversight. And we're hoping that that will be part of any postal legislation. By the way, TSP has averaged 8% earnings a year through all the different variables that people can choose at all the ups and downs of the economy. Compare that to the 2% or 1.5% that's earned on the federal side. So that's another way to help right the finances. Thirdly is what's called Medicare integration. I want to go into that briefly because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around that, but the term. So Medicare integration would mean that once people retire, they would have to be and became Medicare eligible age, which is 65. They would have to be in Medicare B, have to pay for it, and that would become the primary provider, and FEEB would become the secondary. So the idea is maybe threefold. One is it certainly does lower the obligations and the liabilities of the Postal Service. Two, in theory, certainly, and if it's designed right, it should help either maintain or even in some cases lower the premiums that current postal workers are paying as well as retirees are paying, because the feed part of it will become cheaper when Medicare B becomes the primary provider. And C is that those who have both, and by the way, almost 80% of our retirees, APWU retirees, voluntarily choose to have Medicare B and pay for it. The reason they do that is because it's wonderful protection. I mean, in the long run, we're for everybody having health care as a human right. But along the way, having both feed and Medicare gives people really 100% coverage. So there's no deductibles, there's no co-pays, and all of those things. There's no catastrophic this or that. So in the long run, actually, it should help mitigate either further increases, maybe improve healthcare benefits, and possibly lower healthcare premiums. But be very clear on this. We're only talking about prospective. We will not agree to anybody who's already retired forcibly being put into this system. We had people who retired 30 years ago. Their retirements aren't what they are now in terms of the dollar that there was then in terms of their high 30 years ago. Not everybody could afford it. Certainly people wouldn't have known it was coming. Now what we do want, and we think we can get, is that anybody who did not join Medicare is retired. There's a penalty each year after 65 that you don't. And we think we can get a waiver of that. So if somebody had retired 10 years ago, wasn't in Medicare, but now can't afford to be because of the penalties, that penalty will be waived. We also want to make sure that anybody that can't use Medicare, there are people that retired outside of the country, for example, There are a number of veterans that use VA as their medical provider, not feed. So we want to make sure that there are people that have hardships. We want to make sure that those carve outs and those exceptions are there, and it has to be in feed. Now, if it comes to pass, it'll be a postal plan within feed. Why does it have to be a separate postal plan? So we as postal workers get the benefit of the savings. We as postal workers have less premiums or lower premiums or better benefits. And if you don't separate out the group, then you can't do that, and everybody else benefits from the postal system. So I went into a little more because I'm already in advance answering some of the questions that we got in advance, and that was some of the questions. We're going to be very, very careful that this has to be designed right to make sure that these hard-earned benefits of all of us as postal workers are protected and maintained. So we're going to be working hard on that. And as I said, it's just a discussion draft now. We think if it's designed right, it can be a win for postal workers, both retired and active, and a win for the finances of the Postal Service. And don't forget, the Postal Service and postal workers have paid into Medicare. And certainly both sides want to get the full benefit of that as well. The last point I want to raise before we open it up for questions is the contract update. Our collective bargaining agreement expires on September 20th of this year, 2021. It deals with everything that we deal with at work: wages, benefits, safety, working conditions, just cause protection, no layoff protections, all sorts of job security issues, conversions of non-career to career, guaranteed hours for career employees, are all of our leave provisions. Everything's mixed in. So it's a huge issue. It's a battle. We're working very hard in preparation. I'm going to be the lead negotiator. Brother Vance Zimmerman, our industrial relations director, is the chief spokesperson. The craft directors will be heading up their craft table. Steve Brooks in support services, Lamont Brooks and clerk craft, Ado Balagan in maintenance, and Mike Foster in motor vehicle. They'll be heading up their craft tables. Of course, it's all part of it's a holistic thing, but we will have subcommittees that deal with the craft tables. We have a core committee that's already working hard, and our timetable is such that we expect to actually formally open negotiations approximately the middle of June, about 90 days out. Brother Zimmerman is already working on ground rules with management. We're having internal educational presentations and conversations, such as the financial condition of the post office, what the future liabilities look like. Look, these are things that we just have to deal with. But at the end of the day, negotiations come down to power and leverage. You know, I can go in there, make the most wonderful arguments, and I'm sure you on the phone or you on this live stream can do the same thing. And we're right. We're on the side of justice, and our demands are on the money for what postal workers need. And I don't just mean money-wise, but on every front. And but at the end of the day, it's a struggle of power and leverage. They have their demands. Management has the things they want to change. They want more flexibility. We want less flexibility. They want more non-careers. We want more careers. They want to limit pay raises or maybe skip them sometimes. We want the most robust pay raises that people can get and that we can achieve in bargaining. So we do have to think about as a workforce and as a unionized workforce, how do we build our power and leverage? We are going to have a contract campaign. It's going to be a little different than in the past because we can't travel. A lot of locals are not having meetings in person. We'll have to figure out how to do it the best we can virtually. We've had big opening days before. We'll still have an opening day with management, but much of it might be virtual with other people coming in. In the past, we always brought in all our elected officials from around the country and others who came on their own to have a big opening day. and a kickoff the evening before. We're probably not going to be able to do those things in the COVID world, but it doesn't mean we can't collectively send the message to management that we're united. We're united behind certain key demands, and that we've earned it. We've earned it, and especially we've earned it after this last year of stress, combined with the tremendous courage that you've all shown as essential workers. By the way, I'll raise this at the end too, and if I made a mistake, they'll correct me. But I do encourage all of you to, you can text, is it tweet or text? They'll tell me, but it's APWU, text APWU to 91990. They'll tell me later if that's a tweet or a text, 91990. So you do APW and then you do it to that number. The reason I'm raising that is we actually want to reach as many of you with updates on a number of things, but including the contract struggles going forward. And at the end, I'll just mention it here. We're also having another contest. It was great last time about what you think the theme of these negotiations should be. So when you get your new magazine, it's going to the printer tomorrow. It'll have something on the back cover about it. We'll put it on the website and we'll get it to all of you. And we welcome your thoughts. So build that power, build that leverage, and we'll be in touch with it. We will find the ways to send a message right from the workroom floor all the way through those managers up to the PMG. So with that, I would rather cut it there and find out a little more what's on your mind. Look, we got a lot of questions, which is great. We're not going to be able to do them all here. We had folks go through them to try to, because there are a lot of questions that had similar topics, so we could gather those together. And I'm going to turn it over to Stephen DiMatteo, my executive assistant, who's going to share some of those questions, and we'll take it from there. Stephen, are you there?
I'm here, President Dimondstein. Thanks very much. Thanks for everyone for joining us. We did, in fact, get a lot of questions in advance, and we've got a lot coming in on the stream as well. So your first question, President Dimondstein, is a contract question. Terry from St. Paul asks, I would like to know about the total elimination of the two-tier pay scale. He says it needs to be gone, totally eliminated, raising everybody up. Is that a priority for bargaining?
Absolutely. We make no bones about it. Look, we can't get into specifics on these phone calls, but it's not a secret from management. It's not a secret between us and the members. I am a person that I'm opposed to two-tier wage systems. I think it divides the workforce. One of the great things about being union is equal pay for equal work. And it was a huge concessionary contract in 2010. It created the two-tier. Actually, it's a three-tier workforce, folks. It's two tiers within the career scales, pre-2010, post-2010. And then there's also the whole non-career workforce, which is a third lower tier with less pay and less benefits. So absolutely, that's going to be one of our goals. I'm not giving up any secrets here. I do want to share with you, and really do appreciate the question, that in the last round of bargaining, we made this a big issue and prevailed on a part of it in a big step forward. So when we got the interest arbitration award, the arbitrator agreed for level 6, which is the predominant pay grade, pay grade 6, that they would restore 2 of the top steps between the 2 pay scales. So there used to be 5 steps difference. Now there's only 3. And so we want to keep that progress, keep that mobilization going, and definitely it's going to be up there. Now, negotiations, we got no magic wands. And certainly when we want something, management's going to try to extract things for them. Our job is to resist that and come out with a good package that's good for everybody. But this leadership is absolutely committed to try to merge the 2 career pay scales. And of course, with the 3rd pay scale, do the best we can within the non-career pay scale to increase the opportunity for conversion to career and certainly uplift the pay and benefits of the non-career employees. So yes, front and center, important, and we know the convention, the National Convention, which is the highest authority of our union, has certainly taken a stand that that's the way. But once you give stuff up, it's hard to get back and it's hard to mend. But we made a lot of good progress last time. So we will definitely keep you posted and keep that demand out there when we're building our campaign of power and leverage. Thanks, Stephen. I know you got some more.
Sure
I'll try to
do.
keep my answers shorter.
All right. The next question comes from Dustin. He's in Lansing, Michigan. Dustin says they've begun extending our DBCS machines from 270 stackers to 302. How can we address the safety concerns of one person being responsible for sweeping the whole DB at 302 stackers?
No, it's a very good question and a deep concern. Look, we have a number of sign-offs. I wasn't involved with them directly, but we're living with them, and now we got to improve upon them. That around the staffing of the machines. So a lot of the safety issue, you can also argue out locally. You got safety and health labor management committees. You got Form 1767, which is a report of unsafe conditions. I agree with you that as the machines expand, it becomes more and more of a question of how to get the proper staffing to protect safety. The other thing I'll tell you straight up is you have within your power as workers to work safely. And you can only do what you can do safely. So we don't want people to feel pressured by management that you got to do this, you got to run up and down. You can only sweep that machine the best you can do and sweep it safely. And certainly management, you know, if they need more help, then it's their job to get more help. But certainly this is an issue that the national leadership is very aware of. We haven't delved in as of yet much into our safety issues and demands. We know that we're going to have a subcommittee that just deals with health and safety at the negotiating table because that's how important it is. And we'll certainly take a look at how to deal with this issue, whether it's in contract negotiations or whether it's in our regular relationships around health and safety and other issues. It becomes a little harder when you have agreements from the past that says this is how the machines are going to be staffed. So I encourage you to work safely, to encourage your coworkers to work safely, and to do whatever you can locally to ensure that it's done safely. And we always have the grievance procedure, safety. You don't want to wait, but there's all the 1767s. There's the work we all do. There's the grievance procedure. There's labor management safety meetings. So very, very, very important out there. And again, it's really, to some extent, it's probably a product of the chronic understaffing and management always trying to force us to do more with less. So don't let yourselves be forced into doing more with less. Our contract says a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. So I hope that answered the question for now, but we are very aware, and I appreciate the question because that'll help us make us more aware. And for those that haven't filled out the survey around the contract, by the way, 3,000 plus have sent in a survey. For those that are thinking about this issue, if you haven't already sent in a survey, send it because that's part of giving us the direction and the ideas that and where your concerns lay. And maybe this new agreement with 11,000, I mean, it's 5,600 more jobs that the APW will have. 11,000 total and almost 11,000 in mail processing operation. Maybe that will help as they staff up and increase the complement will also help with the staffing and certainly help with the demands that we can all make around staffing.
Great, thanks very much. The next question comes from Zebulon in Hyattsville, Maryland. Zebulon asks, what's being done for APWU members who still aren't back to work because of COVID with no childcare? Management is trying to discipline employees, and Bobby Broder in the live feed had a question as well about the members that have run out of sick leave and the question of the FFCRA.
No, both really important questions. I mean, we still have in terms of the first question about people who are out with child care issues, we still have the liberal leave policy that was part of our series of COVID-related health and safety memos And that's still in effect till the end of March. So any COVID-related leave, and the child care is part of COVID-related leave, if it's dealing with the school closings because of COVID and so on. It'd be a violation of that memo, in my view, for anybody to be disciplined behind COVID-related leave. So if people are getting disciplined, make sure you're getting with your shop stewards and your local and state folks of the APW, the local and state leadership, and fight back. I would also like to know, and I'm quite sure that others who are dealing with this issue, if that in fact is happening, because we also may be able to help shut that down right away. We don't know whether it's all going to be renewed by the end of March. Obviously, the COVID pandemic is still a huge challenge for all of us. So we're certainly going to remain wide open. We think those MOUs have done an awful lot of good things to help keep the workplace as safe as possible and help enable you as workers to protect yourselves, protect each other, act individually or together to make sure that the workplace is safe. And if you don't feel it's safe to be in there, or it's impossible for you to be in there due to other questions like the child care, that you can use that leave without fear of reprisal or discipline. Stephen, the other question I'm sorry, you had two questions kind of mixed in there.
Well, Bobby's question was about members that have used up all of their sick leave because of COVID concerns. So they've run through all of their sick leave and now they're sitting with a zero balance there, but they still have COVID issues and need to take time off. What can they do?
So another very good question. The loss of Family First leave was a blow. The COVID relief package in December, unfortunately, representatives of both parties let it die in that legislation. And so management, and this is one area where we have a huge disagreement with management. A lot of agreement on a lot of safety protocols. This is one. We believe that people should be getting administrative leave for the situation where they're out due to COVID, and you shouldn't have to use your sick leave. So number one, we encourage you, Brother Vance Zimmerman, and the Industrial Relations Department has put out a template grievances to the locals. We encourage you to file grievances. Number one, that you had to use your own leave for COVID-related absences. And certainly number two, if you're out of leave, through your local leadership, let us know, because we will be arguing that management should then kick in. Now, underneath all of this, the new Biden stimulus or relief package proposal does include a restoration to some degree of the Family First leave. And if that can happen within the next 3 or 4 weeks, I believe the House of Representatives is poised to pass it tomorrow, and then it'll move to the Senate. If that can happen within the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, that will certainly be a help to everybody who then faces these COVID-related absences. So no easy answers. We have a disagreement here with management. Get the grievances in. Again, not just for what that you're out of leave, but even that you had to use your own leave if it's still timely to do so in terms of the grievance. And also let us know directly. I would argue that that whether you have leave or not, you should be getting administrative leave. And we think that not only protects you as an individual, it protects all your coworkers. And the last thing you want is somebody that's out of leave and isn't feeling that good and says, well, you know, maybe I should stay home. Maybe I got this. I want to protect my coworkers, but darn, I have to earn a living. And then, you know, somebody goes into work and God forbid they're positive 3 days later. And then other people are exposed. So to us, it's a question of safety protection for everybody. And that's why we have such a fundamental disagreement with management on this.
Our next question, President Dimondstein, we've got a lot coming in from the chat. It comes from Teresa. She's in Missouri. She asks, will PTFs ever make full-time regulars, or can we get paid holidays like PSEs? Lots of questions like that in the chat as well.
Okay, so the second one I can answer easily, although sometimes I'm not sure people are convinced. PTFs actually do get holiday pay. it gets delivered differently than a full-time regular. So I don't have the figures in front of me right now, brothers and sisters, but it's almost, so what happens is they take the 10 holidays, they add up what it would be, and they divide it into a higher hourly pay. So a PTF makes a higher hourly pay than a full-time regular doing the same work in the same grade level. So if you're level 6, you're getting more as a PTF. The difference is the holiday pay is mixed in the hourly pay. And that was done years and years ago because of the fluctuating hours of PTF. So rather than trying to figure out how much pay to do on a given holiday, they put it into the hourly pay, and however many hours of PTF works, they actually get the holiday pay, but they get it delivered in a different way. And for those who have been PTFs like I was and then make regular, you feel like you got a pay cut because your hourly pay went down. The difference is it went down, but then you got your 10 paid holidays. So you actually do get holiday pay. In terms of making regular, look, we've been on a long march as a union, always dedicated to trying to maximize the number of full-time versus part-time. And in fact, when I came in 1983, the plants were full of PTFs. Now there's no PTFs in the plants. In fact, PTFs are only now in level 18s and level 20s. So we have successfully changed over the years how many more full-timers we have compared to PTFs. However, we still have a lot of PTFs. We have almost 15,000 PTFs in those 18s and 20s. And we have to look at guaranteed hours of work. We have to look at full-time opportunities. There are contractual provisions in place, depending on how people's hours of work are 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 months, where people can fight for conversions that way. There's also articles in the, and I'm not the expert on this, right? I'm not the contract expert. There's articles in Article 37, our Clerkcraft article, that deals with showing the need for positions based on all hours of work. So, and we do have, at times we've created the opportunity for PTS to transfer more easily into other, and into bigger facilities where they can transfer to a full-time. The problem with that is people start their seniority over. So we're definitely looking at it. We're definitely very cognizant of a number of PTF issues, from the full-time question to the guaranteed hours question to how many hours postmasters can work in the small offices. All of those things get mixed in to try to make the life of PTFs better. And there's other things that the union has done very well, such as the hub agreement, where people can pick up more hours. But that's not the same as having a regular full-time job in the office that belongs to you. So yes, it's something we're always working on. It's been a long march, and we're going to continue that march forward the best we can.
Great. We're getting a lot of questions in the chat. I've got one here from Katrina. I saw one from Orlando earlier. Members want to know about hazard pay for working through the pandemic. Does the union support it?
You know, the union definitely supported hazard pay in what was called the HEROES Act that never made it through the Senate or to the president's desk last May, June, July, August, and September. It did not make it into the December slimmed down bill on COVID relief. I'm honestly not sure how much of it is in this new stimulus package, but or it's really a relief package. But I will check with our legislative people and Legislative Director Beard and find out. So I'm not going to make anything up here. I can't remember where it landed. We've always been for hazard pay, but always also first and foremost focused on the health and safety of people coming to work. We don't want to sacrifice hazard pay for safety. But we've always thought that us as essential frontline workers working these kind of hazardous conditions and stressful conditions should get extra compensation for it. So I will find out, and if it's in this new package, we're definitely going to support it, and we have supported it the entire time.
Great. Next question is an interesting one, talks about broader trends in the economy and some political questions. Laura Rustin, I believe she was in on the YouTube feed. She asks, if the $15 minimum wage is approved, how will the union handle our wage scales in contract negotiations? For some, our steps are not going to look as favorable.
Did I freeze up or did you freeze up? So can you all still hear me? Okay. See, that was pretty good, sisters and brothers. I didn't freeze. Stephen froze. Better him than me, right? Stephen, can you get back on so I can get reminded on that question? Or text me. Okay, folks, we're having technical difficulties. Stephen, you're back. You froze up. Can you repeat that question for me? Stephen, can you hear us? No. Good. Thank you. Right. Very, very interesting. Yeah, that's a great question. All of them have been really good questions. Number one, we absolutely support a raise in the minimum wage. It's absurd that a minimum wage, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Which one of us can actually live on any kind of decent life on $7.25 an hour? And certainly you couldn't do so with one job. You may have to have three, which is, where does that fit into workers deserve respect? So we are absolute supporters of $15 an hour. I don't even think it's a living wage yet, but it's certainly a big step in the right direction. Now, if it was to pass, it would help us in negotiations, because what the law says is that we're compared in negotiations in terms of our pay scales and our benefits to those doing similar work in the private sector. The more pushed down people are in the private sector, the more pressure there is on us in negotiations. And likewise, I think what the person who asked the question was also partly getting at is, wouldn't it also provide us better arguments that our wage rates have to raise up to attract people into these jobs, which come with night work, weekend work, holiday work, working in bad weather, dealing with irate customers, whatever else we do. And so there's no question that, it would lift everybody, and I think it would have the potential to also lift postal workers. It would certainly help protect us from this downward pressure that, we have to constantly go down because so many workers are not paid enough. And the better the working class is paid and living, the better it's going to be at the negotiating table. It's also better for us as postal workers, because people can shop more, people can order more e-commerce, people will mail more packages and more birthday presents and everything else. So, the more the working class thrives, the more we will thrive. So it's a very interesting question, and we hope it happens. We really hope it happens, and we're doing more than hoping. We're actually working with the AFL-CIO and others to try to get this into the relief package.
Thanks, President Dimondstein. Next question comes from Mike Walsh. He asked, do you expect there to be any proposed processing plant closures in the PMG's 10-year plan?
Mike, I have not seen the 10-year plan. We have not been consulted or asked for input on the plan. That tells you a lot right there about the new PMG. Just as we were not consulted last July when he put in these policies that backfired and slowed down mail. Maybe they didn't backfire. Maybe that's what the people want who are running the post office. If they want to run it into the ground, then those are the ways to do it. So, but I suspect, from what I'm reading in the press, maybe rumors, may not be exactly accurate, I suspect that he's going to reinstitute, from the day he was appointed, actually, that he's going to come after certain things we've been able to hold at bay. And that last phase 2 consolidation, as it was called, post July 1st, 2012, they have about 65 processing plants that they did not close. Let's be very clear. The closing and the consolidation of processing plants from the standpoint of the postal customers and postal workers, was an absolute failure. It did not work. And by the way, did not save the money. Didn't save the money that the post office claimed it was going to save. It drives away business. It slows down the mail. Customers go elsewhere, and it's part of that downward spiral. I've always said the way you destroy a public entity that the people love is first you got to defund it. And that's what PAEA did. That's what some of these liabilities are doing. Right? But after you defund it, then you degrade the services. And the service has been far too degraded. You all know that. And so if the plan comes out with more plant closings, we will have to respond the way we always do as a union. But I have honestly not seen a plan. I'm only getting these tidbits in the same places you are. He comes in, the PMG comes in with a business mentality. This is a public service. It's not the same thing. In a business world, you may say, well, a truck needs to be filled up before it leaves the place and travels somewhere else. In a service, that truck's got to go because your mail's on it. It's got to go whether it's 25% full or 100% full. So we'll have to see. The PMG testified yesterday, and he said he's going to have the plan out by the end of March. We're now advocating that the new nominees to the Board of Governors, that they wait on the plan to see if they get confirmed, which we think they will, and join the Board of Governors so their insights and their views can be taken into account before they issue the plan. And I've already made that clear to the press that that's our position. There should be no plan until the Board of Governors now get confirmed and the board is full.
Great, thanks. We've got probably time for two more if we're quick. One is really a workplace issue, and then one's a bigger picture issue. So this one comes from David, and Michelle had a similar question as well. What can we do in our office when we've got a supervisor doing clerk work and nobody's doing anything about it?
Well, look, I'm glad to get that question because my years in the post office and talking to many people in the post office, this is one area where people don't take the fight seriously enough. That's our work. That's our work. That keeps them from reverting jobs when somebody retires. It keeps PTFs who don't have guaranteed 8 hours a day working more in their offices. It keeps PSEs and our non-career sisters and brothers working. So it's very important to defend the work. These are relatively easy grievances as long as it's documented. Now, if you're saying that you can't get anybody to file the grievances, I'm not gonna, it's hard for me to get into that from here, except to say that often with our union work, a few people are doing all the work. Their plates are full. They're doing it from the heart. They're often doing the best they can. And we just need more people involved in growing. You can also, as an individual, if you're running out of time limits and 14 days to file a grievance, you actually have a right to initiate your own step one. But the key to those grievances is to get witness statements, get the statements, and once you get that, these grievances are generally resolved. And what you really want, along with whatever monetary remedy may be for that 3 hours of bargaining, what you really want is it to stop. So it protects the jobs and protects our job security. So I'm very glad you're on that issue because too many times people say, well, I kind of appreciate the help. Maybe it's good. Maybe I don't have to work overtime tonight. Maybe this or that. Maybe that's the supervisor that's got to decide if I can get off next week and I don't want to argue with him or her. All a mistake. We got to defend the work. We got to stand with each other when it comes to writing witness statements and reclaim that work. So I'm not going to be able on this call address, who you've talked to locally or whatever, but it's something that you should continue to push hard on. Very, very much appreciated.
Great, thanks very much, President Dimondstein. So the last question is really a two-parter, and it's back about the Board of Governors again. What can members do to help push their confirmations forward? And then finally, what are your priorities? What do you hope the priorities for the new members of the board will be once they're seated.
Very, very, very good. All of the questions have been great. I hope it's a priority that the new members of the Board of Governors will bring that needed emphasis on the public good, public service, and fixing this nightmare, this chaos that's now going on there. And I also hope that there's just not going to be this united front with the new PMG. Maybe he's going to do, look, he has done a few right things, such as increasing the complement for mail processing. But you don't want a board that's a rubber stamp for a guy who came in, really for anybody, but for a guy who came in a very strange way, connected to the past administration that wanted to kill the public post office and sell it, who wanted to destroy our collective bargaining rights, and all of us, and who made his money subcontracting with the Postal Service. Now, I'll work with anybody when it's for the good of the people of the country and for the good of postal workers. But you want people who are on the Board of Governors who will speak up and struggle these things out. And right now, it appears that we have 6 people on the Board of Governors, both the Republicans and the Democrats, who are in absolute lockstep with this new PMG, including the policies he put into effect last July that you all know immediately started backing up the mail. So, Stephen, that's the second part. What was the first part again? Please.
You said at the top of the show that the union has asked leaders in the Senate to
in terms of the confirmation.
Yep.
Good question. You know, it goes before the Homeland Security Committee first in the Senate. That would then decide to put it to the Senate floor. It just happened yesterday, so you're getting me to think about this more. I will talk to Judy Beard, our legislative director. We will certainly get out the names of everybody on that committee to you and urge people to confirm all 3 of them. I kind of hope they go together, but we don't know yet. So one way would be to get to your senators who sit on that committee. It's now headed by Senator Peters of Michigan, which is a plus for us. But I can't tell you off the top of my head all of the senators who are on that committee. If you want to look it up yourself, it's the Homeland Security Committee of the Senate, headed up by Senator Peters. So that would certainly be a good start. And if we think any of them are facing any headwinds beyond that, then when it goes to the full Senate floor, we'll certainly call upon you to call upon all of your senators to make sure that they all get confirmed and confirmed as quickly as possible. And I believe Senator Peters has already put out a statement today or yesterday that they are going to move these nominees. But the nominees also, we don't know if they're fully vetted yet, and the whole process is done. But when it's ready, and when their internal process is done, Senator Peters has made it clear that he wants to move these nominees forward, which is a very good thing.
Great. Look, we've got lots more questions, but we're coming up on the top of the hour. I wanted to give you a chance to send off with a few remarks and urge people to join us next month as well if you didn't get your question answered this time around.
Stephen, was the 919 91990, was that a tweet or a text?
A text APWU to 91990.
Thank you. APW to 91990. A couple closing comments. Let me just say this, because again, workers deserve respect. I'm thrilled that Amazon workers in Alabama, 6,000 strong, are now in the middle of a union vote. If you have followed it, this is a company that's thrown everything they possibly can on an anti-union campaign against the workers. But workers need a voice at work. The pandemic has underscored that. We're fortunate enough to have it, but as if the labor movement doesn't grow, we're going to constantly be facing tremendous uphill battle. We always face uphill battles anyway. So we have a stake in what's happening, and this is our industry, brothers and sisters. Now, we would love to organize Amazon as well, and Amazon's everywhere. What's keeping us from organizing Amazon? We have to have workers. We have to have workers who are reaching out to us, interested. So if you know anybody in Amazon facilities, you have people that used to work there, now working at the post office, family members, let us know. We are ready to go. But regardless of which union it is, it would be a wonderful breakthrough for the working people of this country, for workers to vote union yes in a first big beachhead of this monstrous Amazon. And don't forget what I said earlier. We're compared to those in the industry doing similar work. The more Amazon workers rise, the more we're going to rise. The more we're going to be able to defend benefits that we have that almost no workers have, such as COLA, such as no layoff clauses for the career folks. So I just wanted to share that. If you know anybody in Alabama, if you're involved, if you want to get involved, there's ways that you can help. So I'll just end with this. Really pleased you took the time tonight. We keep it to an hour. So when you get on, you know that's what it's going to be. We hope to do this every 4 or 6 weeks. It isn't always going to be me next month or 4 to 6 weeks. If the legislative developments have moved forward, I'm going to ask Sister Judy Beard to join us for some comments and questions and answers. As the contract fight develops, we'll bring on other of the officers who are deeply involved with this. But I really appreciate the opportunity, especially in a time where I, as your president, have not been able to really travel in the COVID world, where we don't have that give and take at conferences, union meetings, at conventions. This is an opportunity. We're trying to use the technology the best we can to communicate back and forth with each other. I'm going to ask Stephen to share with me a lot of the questions and comments that we were not able to get to tonight. And we very much appreciate that you've reached out to us in that way. So my closing is hold the fort as postal workers in difficult times, made more difficult by the management policies and some of the longstanding challenges where we can't even serve the customer in the way that we want, made more difficult by COVID. But underneath it all, this is you all are one impressive, dedicated workforce, and the people of the country know it, appreciate it, are patient, but management has to fix this chaos going on. So I want you to be safe, wear your masks, do your hand washing, fight for health and safety on the workroom floor, take care of each other, and carry on all the great work in the union. Without you as members and activists, guess what? There would not be an APWU. And without an APWU, it would be like all those non-union workers where management has an open door policy, and it sounds so good. And their open door policy is, yep, you don't like it, there's the open door, see your way out. So keep up all the good work and the union spirit. Let's build the power and leverage as we go into contract negotiations. And we'll see you next time. Solidarity forever, APWU family. Thanks so much for joining.